Good afternoon from outside the Lebanese Parliament in Beirut, where lawmakers have convened over the last 2 days to hear the inaugural policy address of Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. In his address to the 128 members of Parliament, Prime Minister Salam secured a resounding vote of confidence to implement his ambitious agenda, which centres on strengthening national security, implementing far-reaching reforms and addressing a wide range of pressing challenges. If this government succeeds in meeting at least some of its objectives, particularly restoring security of the borders and restoring exclusive authority over the right to bear arms to the Lebanese Army, which means the end to the Hezbollah party's paramilitary arm, it will be a resounding victory for Lebanon. And if the recommended reforms are implemented, it will signal the beginning of the end of sectarianism and the corrupt clientelist system that has long crippled the nation. Over the 2-day parliamentary session, more than 75 members of Parliament registered to respond to the Prime Minister's address, with the vast majority publicly endorsing the ministerial statement, including the Hezbollah bloc, which augurs well for change in Lebanon. Head of the Hezbollah bloc in Parliament, Minister Mohammed Raad, stated that whilst they have some reservations, the party and bloc would go beyond what has been said about the formation of the government, and we will cooperate with the cabinet. One of the major political blocs that rejected the Prime Minister's agenda was the Free Patriotic Movement Party of Gibran Bassil, whose party failed to secure any representation in the new government formation. Bassil, in his address in Parliament, said the party would not endorse the government because it did not deserve it, stating that the Prime Minister Salam did not respect the prior agreement made with him the day prior his appointment. What was missing from the ministerial statement was a clear endorsement of the role of women in political decision-making, and no mention was made in liberalising or reforming the media, which remains heavily controlled by sectarian interests.
When pressed on the issue of women's representation, the newly appointed Minister of Social Affairs, Haneed Sayed, and Independent MP Paula Yacoubian were confident the Prime Minister and the Cabinet would not neglect women.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Daisy. There's a solid paragraph of 5 lines in the ministerial statement on women and inclusion of women in economic, social, political. Now, you have to see it in the context of the ministerial statement. Prime Minister did not want a very detailed one for all the sectors and all the issues because this is not the cabinet program in details. Now every ministry has to develop its plan and the like. And I know that the Prime Minister and many of the ministers are very committed. We're going to push this agenda.
What I know is that Nawaf Salam wanted to have at least 8 women in his government. The parties did not help, and he couldn't reach that number. But we have 5 amazing women, very good women in this government. And for once, Daisy, we have a glimpse of hope.
What about the media? You're one of the most prominent former media personalities. Yes. Nothing was addressed about the reforming of the media, which we know is very sectarian based.
Everything needs reform. The media is not only sectarian. That's not the main problem of the media. The media is today with no funding, so they have to go and take money from unfortunately, from the mafia. So the mafia is funding most of the media outlets today in Lebanon. One person is funding more than maybe 90% of the media in Lebanon. Well, just one person.
Who's that?
One bankster.
Antoine Sahnawi?
Antoine Sahnawi. See, this is why you only hear, one side of the story. There is so much to do on all levels. You cannot tackle everything in just one ministerial statement, that's for sure.
And generally then, how are you feeling about this new government?
I feel good about the President, Joseph Aoun, and Nawaf Salam. Both of them are not part of the corrupt junta. They were never part of any deals that happened in Lebanon. For once, we have hope that a clean person is running the show.
Here are the highlights of the Prime Minister's speech. Prime Minister Salam began by asserting the government's unity and determination to defend Lebanon's sovereignty, maintain the country's territorial integrity, and protect citizens' fundamental rights. He underlined the administration's resolve to lift Lebanon out of the current crises, rebuild what has been destroyed, and restore public confidence in the state. He acknowledged the recent devastation caused by the Israeli aggression, stressing the importance of national solidarity and cooperation. A transparent fund will be established to expedite the reconstruction of damaged areas, ensure adequate compensation for those affected, and mobilise support from Arab and international partners. According to the Prime Minister, Lebanon's top priority is to establish a state governed by the rule of law. This includes strengthening public institutions, rebuilding them where necessary, and restoring citizens' trust through reforms in key factors. The Prime Minister reiterated Lebanon's commitment to national security, vowing to fully implement UN Security Council 1701 and related resolutions. He emphasised the government's plan to deploy the Lebanese Army to defend the borders and extend state authority across all Lebanese territory. The government will also adopt a national security strategy encompassing military, diplomatic and economic dimensions. He confirmed Lebanon's right to self-defence against aggression under the United Nations Charter, while stressing the importance of exclusive state authority over arms and the decision-making power regarding war and peace. Turning to domestic politics, the Prime Minister pledged to hold municipal, local and parliamentary elections as scheduled. He promised that the state would remain neutral and impartial in these elections, ensuring fair competition among political forces. To modernise public administration, the government aims to restructure state institutions, expedite transparent appointments and activate regulatory bodies to improve accountability and fight corruption. On the judicial front, the Prime Minister called for an independent judiciary and swift judicial appointments. He urged no delays in key investigations such as the Beirut port explosion and committed to strengthening judicial cooperation with international bodies. Addressing Lebanon's economic challenges, the Prime Minister said the government would pursue negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, enact tax customs reforms and combat waste and smuggling. Restructuring the banking sector and protecting depositors' funds are top priorities. The Prime Minister also underscored the importance of boosting growth, attracting private investments and supporting the agricultural and industrial sectors to create jobs for young people. He outlined plans to improve infrastructure, roads, ports and airports, and pledged to reform telecommunications, water and electricity sectors, promising more reliable supply and renewed efforts in oil and gas exploration. The Prime Minister placed a strong emphasis on education, vowing to strengthen public schools, universities and vocational institutions, as well as to modernising teaching methods through digital transformation. In healthcare, he committed to supporting public hospitals, improving coordination with the private sector and ensuring the availability of essential medications. Social protection will be expanded with a focus on assisting the most vulnerable groups, including continued efforts to address the displacement crisis, provide compensation for victims of the Beirut port explosion. The government plans to revise also laws to guarantee women's rights and encourage their participation in decision-making. It will also promote youth engagement in sports and the arts, invest in cultural industries and preserve Lebanon's diverse heritage. A Ministry of Technology and Artificial Intelligence is proposed to harness innovation, attract Lebanese talents and drive future economic growth. The Prime Minister called for a foreign policy that restores Lebanon's standing in the Arab and international arenas, reiterating the importance of respecting the country's sovereignty and neutrality in regional conflicts. He proposed serious dialogue with Syria to resolve border issues and ensure the return of Syrian refugees. On Palestinian issues, he emphasised Lebanon's rejection of permanent resettlement while supporting the Palestinians' right of return for refugees with international resolutions. In closing, the Prime Minister appealed for unity, urging citizens and political leaders alike to recognise that Lebanon's salvation lies in a strong, reformed state that serves everyone. He expressed hope for a new social contract between a capable government and a creative society. one that meets the aspirations of the Lebanese people and secures a better future for generations to come. Thank you for joining me for this special report. Stay tuned for further updates and analysis on the remaking of Lebanon.